Imagine moving to a brand new country. You walk down a suburban street on a Saturday morning, and you see people proudly displaying what looks to you like literal oversized garbage on their front lawns.
Just sitting right there in the grass.
Right, just out in the open. You're watching them sell old, beaten-up toasters and, frayed armchairs to their neighbors. And if you came from a culture where brand new was the only acceptable standard, you would be entirely bewildered.
Oh, absolutely. And that was the reality for a man moving from Japan's endlessly consuming bubble era to the United States and encountering his very first yard sale.
And that tension, that culture shock, is really the core of our deep dive today. Because today's mission is to unpack this fascinating document. It's a sermon manuscript simply titled Sustainable Faith, written by Pastor Yasushi Nemoto at Kahului Union Church over in Maui, Hawaii.
Yeah, and what we're doing today is exploring how this incredibly trendy, buzzword-heavy concept of sustainability collides with these ancient 3,500-year-old texts.
Specifically, we're looking at the Apostle Paul's letters, like 2 Corinthians chapter 3, right?
Exactly. But before we get too deep into the manuscript, we should probably set some expectations for you listening at home. Because this source material is a theological sermon, and it touches on some very heavy global events, including the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, so we want to be clear on our approach.
Right. Our goal today isn't to preach to you or endorse these specific religious or political viewpoints. We are just here to impartially report on the content and really just extract the author's fascinating psychological and historical insights.
Absolutely. We are looking at the mechanics of human nature that the author is highlighting here. And I want you, listening right now, to think about what the word sustainable actually means in your own life.
Because we hear it constantly, right? Sustainable agriculture, sustainable corporate growth.
Sustainable fashion, exactly. But what does it actually look like in your daily routine? Is it your job? Your health? Your peace of mind?
We constantly compartmentalize sustainability as just an environmental issue or, an economic one. But fundamentally, if you strip away all that corporate jargon, sustainability is really just about endurance.
The study of what actually lasts when pressure is applied.
Exactly. Which brings us back to that yard sale and the culture that Pastor Nemoto grew up in. Because to understand what sustainability is, the manuscript argues we first have to look at a culture that was entirely the opposite.
Japan during the bubble economy of the 1980s.
Right. If you spent your youth in Japan during that era, the entire cultural atmosphere was defined by this just breakneck consumption.
It's wild to think about. The author reflects on his time working at a U.S. military base in Japan during the bubble. And he points out the underlying economic drivers that shaped their whole mindset.
Wages were relatively high, and inflation wasn't severely eroding their purchasing power the way it does, in many places today.
Right. And that specific economic cocktail created this overarching national feeling of invincibility. Like the mentality was literally, tomorrow will work out.
And when you believe tomorrow is guaranteed to be better than today, you don't preserve anything.
Why would you? There's zero incentive to hold on to a television that's starting to act up when you know you can just easily afford the newer, sleeker model the next day.
So it birthed this completely disposable culture. Buying new things wasn't just practical. It was the ultimate symbol of wealth and social status.
So he admits, right, he carried that exact disposable value system with him when he moved to the United States. Yeah. He was wired to believe that new equals good and old equals garbage.
Which is why the American yard sale was such a massive shock to his system. He just couldn't fathom the mindset of looking at a broken lamp and saying, hey, let's keep using this.
But the funny thing is he completely adapted. He totally absorbed that American DIY approach. Instead of tossing a broken appliance, he started opening them up, tinkering and repairing them.
If a thing could still be used, he was determined to use it.
But he actually took it way too far. There's this great detail in the manuscript where he gets so obsessed with fixing old junk that his wife finally has to push back.
Right. She basically stages an intervention.
Yeah. She tells him, please stop fixing these old appliances. I just want new ones.
Which is, such a brilliant and relatable way for the author to introduce a much deeper philosophical problem.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it really makes you stop and ask, does being sustainable just mean hoarding old things forever?
Yeah.
Are we supposed to cling to everything we have, endlessly repairing things that are past their prime, just to proudly claim we didn't throw them away?
Well, there has to be a limit.
Right.
And what's fascinating here is how the source defines that limit.
Yeah.
True sustainability, psychologically speaking, is not a blanket rule of saving everything. Things have lifespans.
Some things finish their role in your life and genuinely need to be retired.
Exactly. The text argues that true sustainability requires the wisdom to discern what to keep and what to change. It is an active, ongoing process of evaluating value. It's not blindly clinging to the past out of stubbornness.
Discernment. Knowing the difference between what holds true value and what needs to be let go. But this lack of discernment, this inability to know what to keep and what to discard, the author says it isn't just a 1980s economic phenomenon.
No, he traces this exact same psychological flaw all the way back 3,500 years to a massive historical failure at Mount Sinai.
Okay, set the scene for us here.
So the manuscript takes that concept of discernment and applies it to human nature on this grand scale. The ancient Israelites had just been rescued from centuries of slavery in Egypt.
Right.
They are wandering in the wilderness, relying entirely on a God they cannot see, and a leader, Moses, who has just disappeared up Mount Sinai to receive the law, the Ten Commandments.
And these stone tablets were supposed to be the foundational rules for their new society, right? But Moses is up there for a really long time. And down in the camp, the psychology of the crowd just starts to turn.
They panic. The anxiety of the unknown sets in, and they completely lose their discernment. They decide they just can't wait for this invisible God anymore. They demand something they can see and touch right now.
So they gather all their gold, melt it down, and forge a statue of a calf.
Right.
Because they wanted a visible God they could control.
Right, rather than an invisible God who controlled them. At the exact moment their covenant is being established on the mountain, they are actively shattering it down below.
They traded a profound, enduring relationship for an immediate, worthless substitute. Now, to explain the emotional weight of this, the author uses this incredibly poignant modern analogy.
Oh, the used car analogy. It's so good.
It really is. So think about a father whose son has just gotten his driver's license. This dad wants to keep his kid safe. So he spends weeks scouring dealerships, reading safety reports, talking to mechanics.
Doing all the research?
Exactly. He is searching for the absolute perfect, reliable car. He finally finds it, pays for it, and drives it home, just imagining the look of pure joy on his son's face. He has prepared this loving, thoughtful gift meant to protect his child.
But when the dad pulls into the driveway, he finds out his son went behind his back. The son was talked into buying this beat-up, fragile, wildly unsafe used car by some older teenagers at school.
Oh, wow. Wait, why would he do that?
Because it was cheap. And he could have it immediately.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Put yourself in that dad's shoes.
Yeah.
You aren't just angry about the car. It's not a financial dispute, It's absolute heartbreak.
Right. It's the crushing realization that your child chose a flimsy, dangerous substitute over the carefully prepared gift that was designed to save their life.
Precisely. And that is the psychological mechanism at play at Mount Sinai. It wasn't just a broken rule. It was a broken relationship. The Israelites chose the cheap used car.
And yet, the text points out something crucial about sustainability here. God didn't abandon them. Even though Moses was so angry he literally smashed the stone tablets, God calls him back up the mountain.
He provides a new set of stone tablets and renews the covenant anyway.
But the fallout of that second trip up the mountain introduces something wild. When Moses comes back down the second time, he has been in the direct presence of God's glory, and his face is glowing.
It is literally shining so intensely that the Israelites are terrified. They can't even look at him. Moses actually has to start wearing a veil over his face whenever he finishes speaking to them.
Because that shining face represents the absolute perfection of the law, imagine standing in front of an incredibly bright, flawless spotlight when you know your clothes are just covered in mud.
Right. The brightness doesn't clean you. It only exposes how dirty you are.
Exactly. The Israelites had just built a golden calf. They knew they were deeply flawed. The blinding standard of perfection was terrifying because it highlighted a standard they had already proven they couldn't meet.
Which naturally leads to the biggest question of this whole deep dives. If humanity is so quick to choose the cheap substitute, if we are so prone to breaking the rules that standing in front of a perfect standard terrifies us, why have the rules in the first place?
Right. Can a strict set of rules ever actually be a sustainable path for life?
Yeah. So the author turns to the letters of the Apostle Paul to answer this, particularly Romans 5 and Galatians 3. Paul argues that the law, those 10 Commandments, was never meant to be a ladder.
A ladder meaning like climbing your way up to heaven with good deeds.
Exactly. The idea that if you just do enough good deeds, rung by rung, you become a perfect person. Paul says that is a fundamental misunderstanding of the rules.
So if it's not a ladder, what is it?
Instead of a ladder, the source explains Paul calls the law an information board, or a mirror. When you look into a perfectly clean mirror and see that you have dirt on your face, the mirror's job is done.
It shows you the reality of your condition, but the mirror cannot reach out and wash your face for you.
Exactly. And the manuscript uses this fantastic real-world analogy for this. Think about a giant banner hanging over a pedestrian bridge right above a busy highway. And written on the banner in huge letters is, "Drive safely."
A great message. Objectively the right thing to do.
But hanging that banner over the asphalt does absolutely nothing to change the internal mindset of the driver speeding underneath it. A sign can't make a reckless person suddenly care about safety. It speaks to the intellect, but it can't change the driver's interior life.
A rule can tell you what you should do, but it provides zero power to actually accomplish it. And this realization leads the author to what is arguably the most vivid and terrifying metaphor in the entire sermon.
The suspension bridge. Oh, this part gave me chills.
Yeah, the text says that if you believe your personal moral rules are your literal path to salvation, if your mindset is, as long as I follow all my rules and keep my routines, my life is sustainable, then you are trying to walk across a massive, bottomless valley on a fragile suspension bridge.
And every single wooden plank on that bridge represents one of your rules.
It's a deeply precarious psychological state.
It's horrifying. Imagine the wind is howling, the ropes are swaying, and you are staring down at your feet. If you step too hard on one plank and it snaps, or if you lose your balance and miss just one rule, you don't just stumble.
You fall completely through the bridge into the abyss.
But wait, here is my pushback. If this bridge of rules is fundamentally impossible for a flawed human to cross without falling, why even have it? Why would a loving God even build it?
Well, the expert explanation here is that it would be cruel if it were the only path. But the suspension bridge of rules exists specifically to prove to you that you cannot cross it on your own.
It shows us we need a substitute.
Exactly. It's designed to exhaust your self-reliance, to break you of the illusion that your own efforts are sustainable. Paul says the law became our tutor to lead us to Christ.
So it's a different path altogether.
Right. The source points to Jesus' words in John 14:6. I am the way and the truth and the life. In this theological framework, Christ acts as the substitute, the true solid path for our inability to balance perfectly on those wooden planks.
So if you truly internalize that, if you realize you aren't supposed to be anxiously balancing on this terrifying suspension bridge of your own making, it radically changes how you move through the world. The manuscript introduces this concept of true boldness.
Yes, and it explores the cultural baggage of that word, particularly in Japan. The author dissects the Japanese word for bold, which is deitan.
Deitan, right.
For a Japanese audience, that word usually carries a connotation of aggressiveness. It implies a sort of reckless, intense confidence.
The author actually brings up this incredible piece of pop culture history. He references an old Japanese cosmetics commercial, the catchphrase, Deitan Tsuteki, which roughly translates to bold and wonderful.
And he notes how that single commercial actually shifted beauty trends in Japan, right?
Yeah. Women started doing their makeup with much more defined, assertive lines. Culturally, to be bold meant to be aggressive.
But the biblical redefinition of boldness, it flips that worldly definition on its head. Biblical boldness has absolutely nothing to do with being reckless. The manuscript defines this boldness as the profound, unshakable peace of walking on a solid stone bridge.
So what does this all mean? The contrast there is staggering.
Yeah.
On the suspension bridge, you are terrified. You're inching along, hyper-analyzing every single step because your survival depends entirely on your own balance.
But on a stone bridge, the environment completely changes. Kids can run around, families can laugh, and you can actually look at the scenery because you trust the bridge won't break.
Your safety has nothing to do with your balancing skills anymore. It's a massive paradigm shift. Worldly sustainability asks, how do I sustain this? But the text asks, who is sustaining you?
It moves the burden off of your shoulders. Sustainable faith isn't about human effort keeping the faith alive. It is a faith that endures precisely because it is sustained by Christ.
And the author makes sure to take this ancient theological metaphor and apply it to our modern, unpredictable reality. Because everyone has their own version of sustainable.
Oh, for sure. Think about the office worker. For them, a sustainable life means a stable company and a steady income.
Or for the carpenter, sustainability is purely physical. It's the ongoing health of their joints so they can keep working.
For the welder, it's maintaining highly specialized skills. For the cleaner, it's the daily rhythm of work that provides a livelihood.
But the terrifying truth that the author points out is how fragile those human routines really are. War, like the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, or disasters or a sudden illness, can destroy these everyday routines in an instant.
The life that was supposed to continue is literally shattered overnight.
And I want you listening to really reflect on that. What are you desperately trying to sustain in your own life right now? And how fragile might it actually be? Are you terrified that one wrong move is going to snap the plank beneath you?
The ultimate value of this text is realizing that true sustainability isn't about perfectly maintaining your current lifestyle. Those routines are inherently fragile.
Right.
True sustainability is about securing a foundation that remains completely intact even when everything else you are trying to sustain is violently stripped away. The Bible offers a deeper hope that isn't crushed by disappointment, even when massive problems aren't solved overnight.
What an incredible journey this manuscript has taken us on today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Pastor Nemoto's manuscript. We started by looking at the disposable psychology of the bubble-era yard sales, and that led us to a profound question about the foundations of our lives.
It really forces a complete reevaluation of what we consider sustainable.
It does. And we always want to leave you with something to chew on as you go about the rest of your day. So think about this. If your personal suspension bridge of daily routines, career goals, and rules were to suddenly give way tomorrow, what is the stone bridge beneath you? When the things you are training to sustain finally break, what is the thing that sustains you? Keep that in mind this week. We'll see you next time.